We'll talk about whale strandings. This has been an issue in the press a lot over the last year, and Allison's going to talk a little bit about that situation and the work they're doing.
Thank you. I like this. So I'm Allison DePerte. I work with Atlantic Marine Conservation Society. We are a nonprofit organization who promotes marine conservation through action, and those actions include responding to whales, dolphins, seals, and sea turtles that wash ashore on our beaches, and investigating the causes of mortality, what's happening to these animals. We also have a wild population study with seals, whales, dolphins, and sea turtles, looking at satellite tagging, where are the animals moving, what are they doing, what kinds of issues they're getting into. And then we try to bring all of those messages together to the public and do a lot of education work. So, as you guys have heard in the news, lots of recent whale strandings in the New York Bight. And since AMC started responding to whales in New York in 2017, we've responded to 83 large whales. And to 17 of those animals have been alive when they were stranded. Not all of those were on the beaches. Some of them were in out-of-habitat locations. But 56 of those 83 large whales got necropsies conducted. And unfortunately, the evidence shows that at least 35 of those animals had evidence of human interaction. A large portion of that includes vessel strikes. So just a little look at New York whale strandings through the years. As you can see, in the early 80s through about 2007, there were many years that didn't have any whale strandings whatsoever, and most of those strandings, most of those years had maybe 1 to 2. Then you get to 2016, 2017, and we're up in the teens, and that has that trend has continued. 2021 was actually a pretty slow year for whales, which is really good. Only 5 strandings in this area. And then you get to 2022, which unfortunately had about 14. And this is a little bit of information about where these animals are stranding. As you can see, the Long Island South Shore is pretty popular. We have responded to animals from the southern New Jersey all the way through Rhode Island. And in 2022, we saw mostly humpback whales and minke whales. There were 3 sperm whales that stranded in 2022 in the end of the year, 2 calves and 1 adult that stranded in Rockaway Beach. So, is this unusual? Well, yeah, in those kind of numbers, but it started really in 2017 with 3 unusual mortality events that were declared by the NOAA fisheries. And the humpback whale unusual mortality event has seen about 190 whales from Maine through Florida strand. And unfortunately, about 38% of those have stranded in the New York Bight. So we're seeing a lot of whale strandings. The humpback whale unusual mortality event right now has been attributed to human interaction, including vessel strikes and entanglements in fishing gear. The Atlantic minke whale unusual mortality event, which is standing at around 150 strandings from Maine through Florida, has about 31% of those animals showing up in New York. And in the New York Bight area. But the difference with this is this unusual mortality event has seen a lot of infectious disease in these animals, including encephalitis. So that is sort of a infectious disease issue with them. Everybody knows the North Atlantic right whale, also unusual mortality event. So the fact that there's 3 unusual mortality events for whales in the New York Bight is definitely a big concern. And 2 of the animals that stranded in the United States during this event stranded in the New York Bight, 1 in Jones Beach and 1 in New Jersey. So these animals also, human interaction, fishing is a big concern. So what happens during an animal necropsy? Well, a team of scientists, we work with a lot of different municipalities, a lot of different network members. We work with the New York State DEC to respond to these animals. And we come together to examine the animals, to collect life history data, including length, weight, document any wounds. You can see on the picture on the right-hand side, our necropsy coordinator, Kim Durham, is documenting some healed injuries from this humpback whale that stranded in 2017 in Rockaway Beach. So we do all of that life history data, but we're also documenting any different human interaction issues. So like I mentioned, sometimes we can document that these animals have had old injuries that have healed and may have new injuries. We keep track of a lot of different animals and respond to a lot of different stranding scenarios, including this animal that was found off the coast of New York, off of Montauk in 2017. And we were able to put a carcass tag on this animal, which is the little ball on the right hand of that top of the screen. So the carcass tag gives you the map and the bottom, which is kind of a drift analysis of where that animal might land. So as you can see, it was pretty much equally predicted to land in New York or on Block Island, which it actually finally did 7 days later. We had the humpback whale disentanglement in Ambrose Channel, which also was a very big event, 4 days long. A lot of different partners, including the New York State DEC and Center for Coastal Studies, were involved in disentangling this animal. And it had a really great story. After 4 days, it was able to be disentangled and released. And our friends at Cresley saw that animal about a month later off of Montauk, and I think again the next year. So at the very least, it was seen again. Unfortunately, this year, since the start of the year, there's been 7 whale strandings, and we're only in April. So here's hoping that that number does not continue. Right now, we're going on about 50 days with no whale strandings reported, so that's pretty helpful. But this was whale stranding Lido Beach in the end of January, and this animal was identified as Luna, who was a 44-plus-year-old male whale that did have evidence of vessel strike injuries that contributed to his death. This animal was a known animal in the Gulf of Maine catalog and had a rich sighting history from a lot of the whale watching boats in that area. And this is the last updated photo of a humpback whale that we responded to in Manasquan, New Jersey in February. These whale strandings tend to take a lot of coordination, a lot of people, and Manasquan did not want to leave this animal on their beach, so we had about 2.5 hours to collect all of the data that was necessary to say what happened to this animal and tell its story. They were able to remove the animal from the beach with all of those heavy equipment and transfer it to an off-site location, which is pretty helpful. So what's the long and short of this? So animals are in the area. Why do we think that they are stranding? Well, we have evidence that is human interaction is contributing to them. But we also are looking at whether or not there's more animals in the area in general, which a lot of our colleagues have been reporting, seeing a lot more animals in this area in a time when we don't see a lot of whales in January, February, because they're supposed to be in their winter feeding and calving grounds. But as you can see, there's a lot of fish in the area as well. The one thing I wanted to kind of mention is that, there's a lot of talk about what's going on with the whales and connecting it to offshore wind and all these different things. And I think it's really important to note that these strandings have been occurring since 2017, so it's not a new issue. And they are related to vessel traffic and vessel use, which is not connected to one specific industry. So as a whole, we need to figure out how to reduce those risks to these animals overall, and not just point fingers at one area. Anybody doesn't know, we have a New York State Marine Mammal and Sea Turtle Stranding hotline, so please make sure if you see any seals, sea turtles, dolphins, or whales that you feel are in distress, report them to the hotline at 631-369-9829. You can also email us at any other of those things for more information. Thank you.